Erik, thank you for coming down to Hennessy Studios, man.
Thank you for having me. This is cool.
I feel I've only met you once, right? We had lunch that one time.
That's the only time we've hung out.
That's the only time I think we've ever met.
It just makes you feel like you've hung out a bunch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we've got a lot of commonalities. You know, agency life, a lot of same people that we know in the industry. YPO, right?
Yep. Oh, which chapter are you in?
I love it.
Which one are you
Oh,
in?
I'm in Pasadena.
Are you?
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And you're in the Santa Monica chapter? For those that are listening, YPO stands for Young Presidents Organization. Yep. And it's an amazing,
it's awesome.
life-changing kind of a group. So for those that don't know you, tell me a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
Who I am and what I do. I'm a Scorpio. I just had a birthday. No, it's background's e-commerce. I built and sold a couple e-commerce companies 10 and 12 years ago. Or actually, no, sorry, 8 and 10 years ago, but starting about 12 years ago. And about 8 years ago, started advising and consulting for a bunch of brands on how to do the same, build, grow, drive revenue growth using marketing, and a lot of what I had pulled from my own experiences, and just found that the marketing ecosystem sucks. Mm-hmm. That as a founder, as a head of marketing, et cetera, it is really hard to find good talent or good agencies. It's 99% of agencies out there have no idea what they're doing when it comes to marketing and actually growing a business. And the few that are good, I found, tend to get really expensive, want long contracts, high minimum, something that makes them hard to work with, and just got sick of it. So hired a little SWAT team of my own, each with their own expertise. So like a Facebook marketer, email marketer, web designer, fractional CMO, et cetera. And went back to these companies and just said, hey, it's all a la carte, month to month, cheaper than hiring in-house. But the idea is you can spin up exactly what you need when you need it, ebb and flow and change as you need to, and get really access to great marketing. And so that's how we started. And now we're about 270 full-time people.
Wow.
Growing fast. And at this point, we have a venture fund that we invest in marketing technology. We're actually raising our second fund now. That's gone incredibly well. We have a financing arm where we do equity or debt financing for our clients when they, as they grow fast, a lot of times working capital becomes a problem. So now we help with that. And then we manage marketing for over 600 brands.
Huh. You need to pick up your game a little bit.
I know. I feel lazy, but I get tired sometimes. I'm getting older.
That's what I'm saying. So, all right. So let's dissect that a little bit,
Let's
right?
do it.
There was a lot there. So how did you know you were an entrepreneur? Like, go back.
Sure.
Like, how did you know that?
Yeah, I took it for granted for two reasons. One, dad and grandfather were entrepreneurs, so I just grew up knowing that that's an option. It wasn't that I had this dream of being a business owner. I feel like the sex appeal of entrepreneurship started around it was 2010, 2011, whenever the Social Network movie came out, and all of a sudden being a founder was this in vogue thing. It used to be actors and movie producers, and now it was being a startup founder. Mm-hmm. And so before that, I don't think that was the term entrepreneur was brought up, but it wasn't it wasn't a rock star kind of connotation. It was just, you're a business owner. Cool. That didn't mean anything. And so I just thought that was one option, and that's what you could, if you were you could get a job or you could do your own thing. It was all options. And because my dad and grandfather both were entrepreneurs, I think just from a very young age, I just assumed that at some point I probably would run my own thing too. And then my friend's dad, when we were in 8th grade, every Wednesday we took a half day to go explore a different business around my hometown of Ojai, small town north of LA. Mm-hmm. And so doing that, I met the owner of the bank and the owner of the local health food store and the owner of lynda.com, which ended up being a multi-billion-dollar exit, started above the Radio Shack in Ojai. I went there when there were 12 people working, and she met Linda, and wow. It was this is when I was in 8th grade. And so then that that was a very pivotal moment for me, because it started to highlight I probably will work for other people to learn so that I can go start my own thing like these people did. And it resonated with me, and I was always sort of hustling from a young age to find ways to make money and that kind of thing too.
Yeah, that was when I was a kid. I would go, I don't know, maybe 13 years old, right? Yeah. And I would walk into a pizza shop, and while everybody's sitting there, all my friends are getting pizza and whatever drinks and stuff, I'm sitting there thinking, man, wow, this is such a cool location because it's right by a school, right? You got all these kids coming in, right? There's 20 kids standing in line right now. They're all spending $6. I'm just doing the math, right?
Exactly.
So it was kind of weird, as a kid, when hindsight, thinking back like that.
Yeah,
right?
I was also lucky enough. I was the oldest, and my dad did very well and was always scared that I would be the spoiled rich kid. So because he made it as I grew up, so he went the opposite. So at 8 years old, I told him I wanted to get an electric guitar? And he's like, yeah, good, get a fucking job. Was his response. So
as he should.
Yep. And so I started buying and selling Beanie Babies because that was the time when they had hyped up. And I made like, I think it was about $4,000 as an 8-year-old selling Beanie Babies.
Wow.
Bought the guitar, bought a BMX, saved money for a car. Like that was the first like little taste of like success in business I had. But I still was tunnel vision on like, I was going to be a rock star when I grew up. I was going to be a guitarist. And then I was about 12 years old. I realized I'm not that good at guitar. I love it. I still play, but I wasn't good enough to be a professional. And so moved on and came up with that's also when I came to terms with the idea of like having a great hobby is okay too.
So sure. And you've got lots of those, which we'll talk about.
Yeah. A little bit of a junkie on that side.
You're like one of the people that I love following on social media because you're like accomplishing most of your bucket list items, it looks like.
Yeah. 2017, thankfully business was doing well. And my wife and I, girlfriend at the time, I was like, we should just go do all this shit we would put on our bucket list. Like, why not? And we like did the Monaco Grand Prix and I went heli boarding and went to Tokyo and did all and then that just kind of catapulted and we should just keep doing this and like if we hear something cool, like we did our honeymoon on safari two years ago. Yeah. And on it, a bunch of people told us like, you got to go try hiking with the gorillas. And she's like, yeah, that sounds like a once in a lifetime opportunity. I was like, yeah, we could do that next year too. Like that could be the once in a lifetime. And we signed up, then COVID, so we postponed it, but we ended up doing it a few months ago. It's fun.
Makes for great photos on social and videos.
It's all about, awesome. I'm all about experiences and memories. Like
that's what life is about.
Stuff. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But you know, it's interesting. So you don't have kids yet.
No.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So you can
everybody that has kids knows that.
Well, what happens, right, once you have kids, because you got 3 of them, is all of the stuff that was on your bucket list gets erased, and your kids' bucket list starts to get moved over to your bucket list.
Yeah, and we're not far off from that period in life. We're not pregnant yet, but could at any day. And so now we're like moving even faster on some of this stuff and like signing up for every random thing that we're like, yeah, let's just go do that because who knows when this might be the last time we actually want to go do that.
Yeah. I'm living in LA because my son wanted to be an actor, right? I'm like, there it is. Yep. He woke up one morning, wanted to write a song. We went to meet a producer. Now he's got a song on Spotify, right? And so like just kind of living vicariously through their life, which
it's awesome. It's supportive too.
So cool. Parent. Yeah, it's so cool. So so this agency, when I started my SEO agency, right? And I know you don't like too many SEOs, but hopefully I'm one of them.
It's not that at all.
Listen, there's a reason why most people don't is because there's a lot of it is snake oil. Yeah. There's a lot of that.
But again, search engine optimization is a thing. If you're doing the right things, it's super valuable. If you're not, a lot of people sell it as this like, intangible like thing that might show up a year from now with the benefits that it's like some of that's valid because it does take a while, but still some of it it's just doesn't work the way it used to. Totally. People are still running as if there's never been an update to Google, even though one happened this week.
So what back in 2001, how I even got into it was out of a need, right? I had like a side hustle in college. I was DJing weddings and parties, and I'm like, how do I tap into brides that want to get married in Las Vegas? Because I had a radio show in Vegas. I was advertising in the Yellow Pages. I was at the bridal shows. I'm like, but how do I tap into the brides that are coming in from Chicago to get married in Vegas, right? Yeah. And so I'm like, why don't I create, as the entrepreneur in me, why don't I create a website called Vegas Wedding Mall where brides can come plan it, right? Yeah. And so that's where the need started, and that was where I started to first learn about this thing called digital marketing and SEO, right? It was based out of a need. Yep. So, and then from there, I built up a couple wedding directories, and I had a couple e-commerce websites, and then I found my way into building an agency because I'm like, if I'm good at this, why not do it for other people? So what's your path to understanding that, hey, maybe I should get into the agency world, right? Like, how did that all happen?
Yeah, it was, I went into real estate out of college 1 week exactly before Lehman Brothers collapsed. Made $350 that year, which is not enough to live in LA, just for people that don't live here. $350 is not a good annual salary. So 6 months in, out of necessity, I just started scrambling to figure out what else I was going to do to make a living. And I ended up launching an online music company and quickly realized, and then I had a t-shirt subscription company and then an women's activewear brand. And the common thread between all of them was like fulfillment, operations, supply chain, all of that. Don't get me wrong, right now it's a pain in the ass, but in general, it's not that hard to figure out how to solve those problems. Like I know I can get a t-shirt, I can manufacture activewear, I can figure out how to deliver business coaching to musicians. Like when there's a logical outcome, I had a pretty easy time with it. The hard part is getting customers because it's a constant moving target. It's, it's always, it's difficult and it's competitive and it changes all the time. And it's something. So just out of nature, since I was the founder, I went for the hardest part of the job because I could go hire someone to ship t-shirts. I could go hire I could hire business coaches. It was when I tried to hire someone to do the marketing, it was always, they cost a lot of money and they didn't execute like I would. And so I just found that I had a natural talent for sales, which led itself to marketing. I just understood how people ticked. And so just started focusing on it. And so after 3 companies later and 2 of them having, exits, I had built a lot more chops than most people in LA around digital marketing and e-com. And so then it just catapulted from there, because then I was one of the only people in LA that had built and sold 2 subscription e-commerce companies that was now independent and trying to figure out what I wanted to do. So all these other companies that wanted to get into it could hire me. And so then I built a team around myself, and again, back to this, what I said in the beginning in terms of like, I hated the ecosystem. So hired a little team to help my clients, and then immediately worked. And then we had credibility around, like, not only was it me and my success or before that, but now we had actually been, as an agency, had success and built some companies and did really well, and, started early with some really good brands. And so from there, it just catapulted. And I went from, I'm going to build a little SWAT team to, oh, this works, we should start extrapolating this, and never planned on building what I've built now. And now I'd say my vision now for the long-term future is a lot clearer than it was when I started. I didn't have one. I was just like doing what was right in front of me.
Yeah, I'm the same. Like, we've built the agency now. We've been working on, this is my second, right? So I already built and sold the first agency. I started the second one. And I never had like the vivid vision, like Cameron Herold, right? I never had that. And so just this year we created our vivid vision. It's a 3-year vivid vision. And it makes so much sense to know, like, where are we going, right?
Yeah.
Get everybody to buy into it, right?
Yep.
So you have a vivid vision.
Not in the sense of the Cameron Herold sense, but in general, yes, I have a very clear vision that I articulate regularly to our team of like where we're going in the next 3 years, 5 years. And then, right now it's really more articulated over 5 years, but I also have articulated and what it could look like after that.
Interesting.
And what's interesting is, since I put it into place, we're now moving faster than we've ever moved on that vision, which like the 5-year vision might actually get accomplished in 3 or 4.
So part of the challenge is being like an entrepreneur, right? And kind of growing a business, especially I think you've bootstrapped pretty much everything that you've done, right?
Completely, yeah. The investors we have are in the venture fund. So, because we're helping other people invest our money. We didn't want to just write our own checks, so letting other people invest with us, basically. Which
is the hardest way to build a business, right? Yeah. I mean, like, turn a zero into $1 and $1
I think everything's
to $3,
hard,
right?
though. Like, because I've raised money too, and like, it's a grind to bootstrap, but it's a pain in the ass to have outside capital too.
Sure.
Like, I've avoided it. It's not like no one's offered me investment. I've had many offers. It's just like, but then I have to deal with them.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
There's pros and cons to all of it.
So now, when you were building the business, right? I'd imagine you're probably going on vacation, you're out on the beach, but then you got that call at 2:00, you got to go and run upstairs and right, kind of like when you're building business takes away sometimes the quality of life, right? And so did you go through those turmoils or?
Yeah, but I mean, and this is a really big part of what makes me tick is I never thought of myself as a victim in it, meaning like, when I thought about like the quote unquote sacrifices, it was a choice. Like, if I didn't want to do it, if I didn't like the end result better, then I would have just gotten a job. And I knew I had that opportunity. I knew I could do that, but I hate working for someone else versus being an entrepreneur. And so, and I guess I also love what I do. So having to take a moment away from sitting on the beach and go like, one thing I didn't do, like I hear people that are like, I haven't taken a vacation in 4 years. That doesn't impress me.
No, it totally
doesn't. You have no scalability. You have no ability to run an operation, to build processes. Like if you were that critical to your business, you built a shitty business.
Exactly.
So we got offered to sell the company a year in, and my partner and I turned it down, but really had a conversation about, okay, like we're turning this down, but we should that means we might be stuck with it. So we should make this more of a marathon than a sprint. Like, what does this look like? Like, what do you need? What would you do if we sold? That would be their highlight and what was mine. And at the time it was, he wanted to play golf every other Wednesday morning. And I wanted to go on 2 really cool vacations a year. And that was 2015 when we had that conversation and we started traveling. I started traveling. He played a lot of golf. Now he has 3 kids later, his priorities are a little different. Mine are not. But it was just figuring out what makes it sustainable. And then that sort of sacrifice, it wasn't a sacrifice. It was just a different type of harmony. It was a different existence, not a worse existence, where it's like, yeah, I can take off and do whatever I want and kind of, as you mentioned earlier, like live my bucket list. it might mean that I have to answer an email on the beach in Mexico, but
course.
God forbid. Like it was,
Well, where I'm going with that is, so for me, my pivotal moment was, I think it was like 2018, right? At the time, my margins are like 60%, right?
Yep.
I don't have a lot of staff,
Yep.
don't have a, right? You know, and at the end of the year, you know, I made a lot of profit, right? But I was that guy that
Yep.
was like on the beach having to go upstairs, and my wife
Yep.
was like, come on, like really another call, right?
Yep.
So, so at the end of the year, I'm like, you know, taxes came around and I had to write a big check to the government, right? Because, well, so I'm like, holy crap, like, why am I doing this to myself?
Yeah.
Right. And so that year is when I started to invest in, I brought a president, a COO, I brought in a CFO. And then from there, it's like just kind of like building out the team.
Yeah.
Basically gave me back my time to be doing cool things like this. Right. There's no way I'd be able to do this 3 years ago. Right. Give me the freedom. And now that the agency is just kind of like grown without me. Right. So what was your aha moment in business like that?
Thankfully, I came in with that mindset. So like my business partner was my original like strategist that I knew. He ran a music company that I'd started. I left after 2 years. He ran it for 3. And he basically from the beginning just intuitively said, like, you go do what you're good at, which was like waving the flag, beating the drum, meeting people, getting the name out there, sales for a long time. And he was like, I'll go, you know, you go make promises, I'll deliver on them. And like, we'll balance that. So I had that from the start, and so did he, because he didn't have to go be on the road all the time. And like, I mean, I was at a different event every night for years. I was, you know, but pre-COVID, I was traveling every other week. I was on 68 flights in 2019.
Wow.
So, or maybe more than that. I think it was 68 flights on Delta plus 10 more on some other airlines. So it was, a lot. But I enjoyed that, and he enjoyed his part. And so that was a great balance. And then through that also got us in sort of the habit of scaling. And so, because we already had each other, then it was like, okay, now I'm getting bogged down by this. We're going to hire someone else. We're going to hire someone else. And we kept replacing ourselves over and over again. To this day, that's how we've built the company.
Yeah. So now, would you say, you know, getting to like the first 10 million in revenue, was that harder than kind of where you are now, and kind of as far as your goals go?
I think it's all hard.
It's just all hard. Okay.
Yeah, but I would say no. Getting to 10. I mean, listen, had challenges. It's running a business. You're grinding, but so it's hard. But I would say what I've seen with agencies is the sort of 10 to $20 million range is probably the hardest part, because you start to need that senior level infrastructure and the talent and the expenses. Yeah. And you need HR and you need legal and you need all these things, but you don't quite have the revenue to really support it all. So you end up really tight. And I see this, you know, we now buy a lot of agencies, so we see a lot of P&Ls. And I see this, you know, 95% of the time, agencies in that 10 to 20 million range are not profiting very well, and they're grinding through it. And that's why you see a lot of agencies at that scale end up selling, because getting through that phase can be multiple years of really thin. I mean, one of the bigger agencies in LA, one of our, you know, kind of peers that I won't name because I'm sharing something. Yeah. I know that they spent 3 years at 15 million in revenue, and just sat there, no profit and 15 million in revenue.
Because they're growing.
What's
right?
That?
Because they're growing.
They weren't growing. That's my point.
Growing.
They did 15, 15, 15, no profit, no profit, no profit.
I see.
And then broke through. But that period, and it wasn't us. Thankfully, we continued to grow, but our profit was not much to speak of for a little while.
See, my thought process is, if at 15 million, maybe they're just kind of investing into the infrastructure to help them get right. You know,
you are, but it takes more. It can take more time for that infrastructure. Actually, with our business is people, so that's it's not like you bought a new piece of a new machine, in your factory that now produces it more efficiently. You hired a person that's going to take months, if not years, to get up to speed, and maybe that's the right person, or maybe you have to fire them and bring in a different person, and like it's and who knows what's going on in the market at that point too. Like, it's a lot of moving parts, and then you break through that and you can start to go again. And then you know, once you get post 20, then profits start to kick up again, because a sub 10, it's easy to profit. Yeah. You know, you're mentioning 60% profits. When you're tiny, that's very easy to do.
Totally is.
I shouldn't say very easy, but it's doable. But in that 10 to 20 range, it's not as doable.
No.
And then after that, you see a lot of these agencies start to catch up again, and then the profit comes back again, and they start, depending on how they're reinvesting, but you can really start. That's where private equity starts to look at that stage too.
Yeah, that's why, like, you know, like with our leadership and our team, you know, you start looking at like profit sharing stuff, right? But sometimes that's the wrong way to look at it, because a high growing company, it doesn't care about profit right away, right? Yep. You know, you're just trying to grow, right? And so, anyway, that's kind of why I got a business coach. Like we talked about Cameron Harold. He's helping us kind of see that.
Yeah,
do you have a coach or a mentor?
Yeah. For the past year, I think it's been.
How's that working out?
Great. I mean, if anything, it holds me responsible to think a little broader. We meet every other week, and it's like it forces me to sit down and actually have more, instead of getting stuck in the day-to-day firefighting building. It's like, okay, now take a step back. What are the biggest things you need to be focused on? So there's like that step back every other week. And now we hired a new COO that I have joining me on it, that it's gotten him and I, it's an hour and a half every other week that we spend with a coach talking through the bigger things and the issues we're having. And he's great. I mean, I was having trouble with an executive and I brought it to him, and he basically, in a lot more words, was like, it sounds like you're the wrong one here. Like,
sometimes you need to hear that.
Yeah, no,
right?
Yes. If that's the case, you always need to hear that. And it was right. Like I took a step back and then had another conversation with the exec and got back on track. Like it's like, I know I'm far from perfect even with building this thing. And so I need someone that's going to bounce that. And generally, if you're the CEO, your executives aren't going to do that. You need someone that's going to actually give it to you straight.
Yeah. So. Yeah. You have to be humble, hungry, and open to criticism, right?
Exactly.
As a CEO. And welcome it from your subordinates, right?
Yeah, but I got to say, even if you encourage it, welcome it, even if you're like the best at receiving it, there's still just, people are brought up to fear authority. Like it's just most people are raised, and our education system, calling our teachers Mr. and Mrs., like they teach you to respect authority, not challenge it.
Sure.
And I had a different upbringing. I went to a hippie school and all this stuff. So I was taught the opposite, at the detriment to my teachers, because I was like the most outspoken problem child in school. But it also taught me, like, I don't care like who you are. I'm still like, I can respect someone. It doesn't mean I have to fear someone or not speak up for myself either. And so try to encourage that with my team, but I've noticed it's very hard to ask.
Yeah. So I was on a call recently, actually with our coach, and we're talking about, we're looking to hire certain people for different positions. And, I think somebody came through and they came all the way up and they're like, yeah, we want to offer you a position. And they're like, oh, I didn't think you were going to hire me because I didn't have a college degree.
I went to college. I had a lot of fun. I can't say that I learned that much. I don't know. I think college is a great indicator that someone can commit to something for 4 years and complete it. It's not the only way to show that, especially if you're talking about someone later in their career where they've had jobs for several years. Like the only thing I would if they have the experience and they show that they've been able to like see things through, I wouldn't worry about that.
Sure.
Because that is really what, for a younger person, that's what I think the one benefit in terms of being on a resume it shows is like, so you committed to something for 4 years, you saw it through, you finished, you did well, depending on their grades and stuff, like you committed to it. Like that's all it tells me. It doesn't, I'm sorry, I wish their education system was better, but like when someone has a digital marketing degree or a marketing degree and they come in, that doesn't mean anything to me.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My marketing classes sucked, but.
Now, granted, I mean, if I'm a law firm, if I'm a hospital and I need a doc, right? It's a whole different circumstance.
Yeah, engineers,
right?
medical, science, medicine, like it's different, but.
Totally different, yeah. So what excites you? Why do you get up and like every morning? Like what excites you about being the CEO of Hawke Media?
Yeah, it's, I don't know. There's a few things. It's with life in general, and you commented on it with the hobby thing too. I just have this, I'm not a very religious person, very agnostic. And I know this sounds like a weird tangent, but it's going to come back. So I have no idea what happens after we're here, after we die, et cetera. So with that, and that means I'm not atheist. I think that's as ridiculous as being hyper-religious in terms of how atheists talk about hyper-religious, like they're ignorant. I'm like, so are you. Like, how can you make that call? So I'm very, by definition, agnostic. And why I say that is, I don't know what happens after this, so I feel like I better take full advantage of everything that life has to offer. Personally, professionally, family, I want to experience everything because I don't know whether we die and that's it. I don't know if we die and we have an afterlife, but because I don't know, I'm going to hedge against that and just do everything I can here. And so what that means is I want to experience everything that sounds fun to me, and that includes professional. Like I love the idea of building something, leaving a legacy, and like really like, and so what drives me in business is like, we call it the sandbox, but because we've built this thing that has a great mission and something that can really help tons of people, which is really fulfilling too, and that is a big part, it also allows me to try new things all the time. Like we've bought 6 agencies and we're hopefully going to close 1 or 2 more by the end of the year. We're now trying to buy a piece of software. We've never done that before. I'm going to try it out.
Yeah.
We just expanded into Canada. We're now expanding overseas. We're working on expanding into Asia and Europe at the same time. these are all things I have no idea what I'm doing, but that's what drives me. It's like, let's try it. I don't know. Like, let's figure it out. Like this whole, not to get too philosophical, but this whole framework of like how we've built capitalism and the world runs, it's like, it's all construct that's like kind of bullshit. But since it is, like, let's have fun with it. Let's go figure out like, okay, so now we figured out, how to expand overseas, and we're figuring out M&A, and now we're figuring out how to invest and build a venture fund, and we're figuring out this financing arm, and it's my book's coming out. Like what does the opposite? What takes the energy out of me is when I'm dealing with the same shit over and over again. Which again goes back to delegating and hiring and building infrastructure and process. So I'm happy to solve challenges and problems. Like that's par for the course with running a business. But if I'm solving the same fucking problem that we've already developed processes to, it drives me nuts. And so then I end up building things to make sure that, like, if I see the same problem twice, then I'll build something to make sure we never see the same problem twice again. So it's being proactive about that and getting it done.
That's a secret to business, really. Yeah. You're going to make a lot of mistakes.
Oh, 100%. Right? It's never going to end. And that, again, was one of the biggest realizations I had in business, which made it more fun, was if you're running a business, it is going to be a shit show permanently. It doesn't end. There's no finish line. Like, look at Jeff Bezos, look at Mark Zuckerberg, look at the biggest CEOs and founders and whatever in the world are always dealing with crap. Like look at Mark right now with like, he's having to deal with Congress and not supply chain, but trade wars and all these different things. Apple, Tim Cook, same thing. Like it's not like their problems went away because they got rich. It just doesn't ever happen.
They just sometimes become bigger problems that you have to solve, right?
And so once you stop acting like it's happening to you and you go, no, I chose to do this. Like that's part of it. I signed up for this. Then it's not as big. It's not a problem. It's just a challenge and part of the job. And once you get through that, it becomes fun.
Sometimes it's interesting when, one of the things that we started to do is becoming vulnerable with the mistakes that we make. And actually creating blog posts about it, being vulnerable, like, hey, listen, we're all human. One of the issues that we made with our agency, I'll just give you a quick example. It's a human error. We do a lot of marketing direct to, and so one of our people just accidentally put they forgot a digit on a phone number, right? And it went live on the website. And so the client called us up and was like, what the heck? I've been losing calls for like the past 3 days. We're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. So then what we did was we built a script that goes out to every single client's website every single day and checks to make sure that it validates, right?
And that's the key is, mistakes will happen. It's figuring out a solution that just doesn't happen again.
Yeah. So I don't want to I want to go back a second. Like what you just talked about was so powerful, of kind of like building that fulfilling life, right? And there's a friend of mine that has this mantra. He's like, at the end of our journey, right? However spiritual you are, right? He gets the impression that you're going to shake the hand of the person that you could have been. Right?
Yeah.
And how aligned are you with where you left the world with that person? Like, are you that person?
Yeah. And I think, and for me personally, I think yes. Like I've made I always like the give back side of things too, and to make the world a better place has always been part of, and I've always been passionate about better education. We talked a little bit about it in terms of my lack of enthusiasm around the current state of affairs, but I realized early that I also had a knack for business, and I could probably be the one, as I used to put it, could fill the cup instead of shake it. And so building a business that allows me to support these things, we're building our own nonprofit around education. And so that part I get to fulfill. Again, there's I've been offered many times to sell the company for more than I'd ever need to live off of, or my grandkids would be fine. But the question has consistently been, then what? Cool, I have a pile of money, which sounds ridiculous, and I get it, but you get to a point, it's a pretty low bar before you're making enough money to pay your bills and cover the lifestyle you want to live, unless you're ridiculous. And then frankly, anything above that becomes a bigger house, a bigger yacht, or a bigger jet. And I've watched this over and over again. So other than that, the lump sum of money doesn't really change. So I realize you really, if you're passionate about what you're doing and you love it and you're able to do all the things you want to do, why would you change that? And I think I watched, YPO included, a lot of people make that decision because they think it's the prudent thing to do, is to take the money. And then they go, okay, so what do I do now? I'm bored.
Totally.
You can only play golf so much or go surfing or whatever. It's fun, don't get me wrong, but I get to do both of those. I see it because all my friends that have had 9-figure exits, billionaires, etc., we live a pretty similar lifestyle, but I have something else I'm passionate about, and they're bored. And I see that a lot.
Oh yeah.
And so I think back to the shaking the hands with the person you want to become. I think that develops over time too. And I think it's important to continue to like check in with yourself and know, are you doing what you want to be doing? But I think doing what you're quote unquote supposed to be doing versus what you just want to do is really important. And I say that I have this fun balance in my life where one of my childhood best friends dropped out of high school, worked at a skateboard company for a little while, for lack of a better word, then taught English in Philippines, then ended up in Thailand. Our friend ended up helping her buy bed and breakfast on the beach in Thailand. It's like a tree house. It's $5 a night to stay at.
Cool.
And now she's got 2 half Thai kids. She's lived there for, I don't know, a decade plus now. And she just chills on the beach in Thailand all day and does a little like marketing work with the local community in Koh Lanta, Thailand, and has her bed and breakfast. And it's like, that's a whole other path that totally appeals to me. And I could have, like, there's this fork that I could always like lean over. I've joked with my wife several times, like, we should just sell and open a taco shop in Mexico. Like this could do that too. Yeah. And maybe at some point that actually becomes the priority. But for now, the platform, I like the actual job, and the platform it creates for me to do everything I want to do has been big.
Oh, interesting. So looking back, right, if you met your 10-year-old self now, what would he say about you? Like what you're doing, who you are?
Yeah, that's what's funny is I realized like I've been very fluid in my career versus like very planned. Like when I was 10, I thought I wanted to be a musician, a guitarist. But I also admired my dad as a businessman, and I liked business too. And so like I think it would have been like, oh, that's interesting. Like, cool. Like I have a fun job and I have a fun lifestyle that I think my 10-year-old self would be like, all right, that's cool. Like, it's not like, I didn't become something that no 10-year-old ever dreams of. I think running a company that, gets to grow companies and brands and work with all these cool, other product companies and things like that.
Not in the vocabulary of a 10-year-old, yeah.
It's not, but I also think if you explained it to a 10-year-old, they're like, oh, that's cool. Like, I have an 11-year-old sister, actually, that apparently her and her friends talk about our company. So
really?
Yeah, so like marketing's become an in vogue thing, apparently. And like, it sounds kind of cool. You even see movies as a kid about like advertising firms. There's always a ton of, sort of rom-coms and stuff with ad firms. And I just remember as a young kid never thinking like, that's weird, why would you ever want to do that? It's like, oh, that's kind of fun. You like have to come up with some slogan or something. I will say though, in college I made fun of marketing majors. So it's like, what do marketers do? Like, you draw pretty pictures, the hell are you studying? Like, and I had no room to talk. I was a management major, which literally meant nothing as well. But I never thought I'd be in marketing early on.
Well, nowadays, I mean, like these 10-year-olds are kind of like, they see like the opportunity of becoming TikTok famous and Instagram famous and reviewing toys and becoming influencers, right?
We partnered 2 of the biggest TikTok stars to create a Gen Z agency because they're 2 of the best content creators for Gen Z. So we created a creative agency around Gen Z. And now I am the admiration of all of my friends' kids and my cousins' kids, and like all the 10 to 15-year-olds around my life are like, how do you know these guys?
So now where do you think your life would be if we had the social media back when you were 10, 12 years old? Like, do you think you would have been an influencer back in those days?
No, I'm still not. I mean, honestly, like I do a lot of speaking, and I'm like, I'm a quote unquote influencer in my space, but I'm not an influencer by like the standard definitions. Like, I don't have that big of a social following. Sure. I was a late adopter for a lot of this stuff and that's actually, I think, what benefited me in marketing is like so many people chase the shiny object. Like now it's NFTs. Like, don't get me wrong, NFTs might be great. Some people are going to make money in it. I don't know that there's a huge audience and it's that compelling for like major brands yet. It's something else to capture. Sure, go for it. But like, I think the sort of shiny object syndrome that people get in marketing is a very bad thing. And instead, like, I was a guy that like, I finally got on MySpace. I think like after everyone in my school was on it, I was like, all right, fine, I'll get one. I never used it. And then I got Facebook pretty early because you're single and freshman in college and every girl's telling you to find them on Facebook. And you're like, all right, fine. But it was when it was only in colleges. Like I think I'm a year younger than Zuckerberg.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure 1 or 2. So like when he launched to other colleges, I was in school. And so got that. And, but yeah, I was like TikTok I got because I was stuck in Seoul, Korea at airport for 6 hours and it was middle of the day for me, but middle of the night here. And so I had nothing to do. And I was like, oh, I'll check this thing out. But like, it's never been like, I got to be ahead of everyone. And so even like, so social media was out when I was in high school. Like we had MySpace and I was like, and my friends were all on it. And I kind of was on it sometimes, but not really that into it.
Yeah, so for me, it was a little different, right? We didn't even have the internet at all, like growing up, right? If I wanted to go meet a girl, I'd have to like get my mom to drop me off at the mall, right? And
Well, I mean, we had to do that too. Yeah.
You
We had
know?
AOL Instant Messenger though. That was big.
It was so bad that, you know, like when I needed a ride home and I didn't have money, I would use the payphone and call my mom
1-800
collect. Yeah, and be like, please leave your name. Mom, I'm at McDonald's, right? And boom. They're
One of my favorite commercials. We had a baby, it's a boy.
So awesome. All right, so now I know the business side of Erik. Now I'm going to get to know the personal side of Erik.
All
and
right.
We're going to play a game here.
All right,
Some
a game.
cards
Here we
right
go.
there in front of you.
Never have I ever. All right.
Yes.
Could be really inappropriate.
No, we picked out ones that are not.
Yeah.
Super simple. It's not really a game. It's just to get to know you a little bit more. You'll flip over a card, tell me, talk about it, and then I'll do the same.
Sent an eggplant emoji. I don't. I mean, I've been with my wife since the eggplant emoji was a thing, so I might have, but probably not. Not in that context. Not in that context. Maybe as a joke, but not really.
Yeah. You haven't been living the single life.
No,
for
exactly.
a while, right? So I'm sure there's many
almost 8
eggplants
years
being sent from single people.
Yeah.
Gone through an entire vacation without luggage showing up. So, no, I don't think my luggage has ever gotten lost.
Mm-hmm. Really?
I don't think so ever. But one time I was going to be real late. You know how you only have that hour and they're like, oh, we can't check it. I might put my luggage back in the car and then I got it on the plane because I couldn't miss the flight.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'll figure it out when I get there. And it was like a week-long stay in Pittsburgh.
Nice. I had a great, real quick experience with that. I went to a 50th birthday in Napa, a really fancy one, and I packed my luggage, and they lost my luggage. Mm-hmm. And then they're like, they found it, and but I flew in for the party, so it was like, I got there at 4, the party's at 6. They told me they found it. I'm like, well, it has to be here by 5 because I have to change. And the guy tells me, Delta, love this airline. Mm-hmm. They're like, listen, you can just go, like, if we're not there by 5, go buy a new outfit and we'll just pay for it. I'm like, I'm sorry, but like, I need like a suit and I'm in Napa. Like, this is an expensive place. Like, I don't know what I'm like, just go buy. And I like didn't quite trust it. I wish I did because I went like halfway between spending a crazy amount, but I spent a lot of money on a whole new outfit. Yeah. Like, sent me a check a week later. Right? It was amazing.
And that's why you're loyal to Delta, it sounds
one of the main reasons. Yeah. I mean, they're just good with their people. So had someone else do my work and pretended it was my own. Oh, I'm sure. Trying to think of an example, but so I don't do that with like Hawke and like my employees or anything. I'm really big about credit where credit's due, but in school I gave 2 shits about school. So I would say I didn't like have someone else write an essay for me, but what I do, like in high school, my 2 best friends that are still close today, they were like avid readers and studied and all that. And I'd sit with them like 10 minutes before class and have them just tell me what it's all about so I could go take the test. Yeah. Because I picked up things and remembered really quickly and got the gist and frankly was able to bullshit my way through school in a lot of ways. So that in that way, like I didn't actually study, but I did really well because my friends would just tell me what's up. Like they'd read a book and tell me the synopsis. Instead of reading SparkNotes, it would just sit with 10 minutes and like, what's it about? Yeah. Okay, I'll go write an essay on it.
So I've got a little fib to make. So my son was really stressed out once because he had this English paper that was due, right? And he's like, Dad, can you help me? And I'm like, oh, I don't want to be sitting here. It's like 11 o'clock at night. Now you tell me you want me to write an English paper for you, right? So we started to write it. And I'm like, man, like this. I'm like, I'm going to use some AI. I'm going to... because they will use Copyscape or whatever tool they use to go find it, but they're not going to trace AI, right? And I'm like, screw it, it's better than you failing. So I popped in the subject, spit it out like a 1,500 word essay, bam, gave it to him, sent him along the way. But then I changed the password so he can't ever use that again. And he got like an A. So hey man, AI works even for school kids. Yeah,
and it's about getting the job done sometimes.
Exactly.
School's not built necessarily for success.
Lied about my occupation. No, I think so. The only time I remember doing that was when I was in the Air Force and we would come down. I was stationed in Vegas and we'd come down to Newport Beach or Huntington Beach with some friends. And it was just a game we played. We would meet people and tell them, oh, I'm an astronaut. And you know what I mean? It was just a game.
I was going to say, that's the same thing. Like, I've never lied because of an actual, like, real intent. It was more just fun. Like, I'm going to tell people I'm a garbage man tonight. Like, it's like,
just why not go with the story?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah. You went astronaut, I went garbage man. Slipped some cash to the maitre d'. probably the bouncer at the club. I don't know about the maitre d'. I've
totally.
I like getting a table at a restaurant's never really been that difficult. And I always felt weird, like, wait, but I can't have a table, but if I give you $20, I can have a table at a restaurant? Like, isn't this backwards? So no, I didn't. But yeah, club for sure.
The only time I've done that recently, actually, it was in Miami, and we had a group of people. It was like at a conference, and like we walked over to the Cheesecake Factory right across the street from where the conference was at. We had like 7 of us, and the lady's like, there's like a line out the door. I'm like, here's $40. Like, can you get it? And she's like, all right, 20 minutes. I'm like, done.
That's
so
funny.
It works, right?
Gotta love that it was Cheesecake Factory.
The Cheesecake Factory of all places, right? Bought a concert ticket that ended up being fake or invalid. About a year and a half ago, we took my son, his favorite, one of his favorite artists was Juice WRLD, who recently passed away. And so I got him like these amazing seats, and it was like in a bench. And so when we got there, it was supposed to be like front row. And when we got there, I'm like, hey, where's the seats? And I paid like $600 each for this. And for whatever reason, like the guy lied. And so when I got the tickets, like it was like we got in, but it was like the bench was way at the top of the Greek Theater. I'm not sure if you've ever been there. There's like all of these seats, and then there's like a bench up there. And so when you're looking at the tickets, it doesn't look like that. And so anyway, we were not going to sit at the bench. We ended up getting new tickets. But
Nice. Yeah, I don't think it's happened.
No.
I haven't done that much scalping. I usually just buy direct. So
yeah.
All right. How to de-scrambler box to steal cable. No. That's a little outdated, I feel like.
Yeah. I had one of those.
Did you?
I totally did, man. That was like a thing in like the like early 90s, late 80s.
Yeah, I did not have a TV in the early 90s. I snuck a TV into my room when I was like 12.
Did you?
Which would have been like, end late 90s.
And mostly did it for watching like the Tyson fight and, you know, all that stuff in the 80s, right? You didn't have money. Jump from the roof of into a pool. I've personally have never done that, and that's kind of like my biggest fear, because I have like a pool, and the kids could jump from either my upstairs deck or the roof, and so that's kind of like my biggest fear in life.
Wow.
Yeah. So I tell them if they ever do that, I'm taking away everything from them.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I have. Use shampoo as body wash. Yeah, many times.
Who doesn't, right? You go to the hotel.
Yeah, exactly. If it's missing body wash, I'm using the shampoo. Like,
same thing. You're going to use everything, you know, vice versa too, right? Tried to hide something from hotel housekeeping. Oh, all the time. You know, I'll put like a watch in one of my it's like the beach, right? You know what I mean?
Yep.
You know, nobody will look at my sneaker.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yep. My wife also really loves the Labo, which I think it's the Fairmont it uses. So every time I end up staying at a Fairmont somewhere, I always like grab like a bag full. And funny enough, I went to a marketing conference up in Banff. On the way back, I'm hanging out with the guy that's now the CMO of TikTok, Nick Tran, who's buddies, great guy. And I was chatting with him and talking about maybe doing a partnership. And I get through security in Canada, and they're like, we need to open your bag. And I open it up, and it's this trash bag full of, you know, the little hotel bottles of the Labo. And he's standing next to me, just like, nice, dude. And I'm like, my wife likes it. He's like, yeah, I'm sure.
You're that guy.
I was that guy. Said I'm never drinking again. I stopped drinking when COVID hit, and actually have pretty much stuck with it.
See?
Yeah. So yes, I've also said it in the way they're phrasing it, which is like, I had a bad night and like, I'm never drinking again. But yeah, when COVID hit, I just wanted to like be healthier and not deal with hangovers, and just decided to stop doing it.
Yeah, for me, the one time I said that, I actually stuck to it. And I'm not a big drinker, but I got really wasted off of this thing called Zima back in the day.
Yeah, that's painful.
And you put like a Jolly Rancher in there. It gives it this amazing peach flavor, right? And I ended up in a berry bush, like in front of a bowling alley. And I just never did that again.
Not fun.
Yep. Forgot my wedding anniversary. Never done that because my wife and I got married on April Fool's Day, so it's pretty hard to forget the wedding anniversary when it's a
I feel that's a recipe for disaster sometimes. So you're trying to balance both. You
mess
with her, but
well, that was it. I half jokingly asked her to get married after knowing her for a month and a half, and we just did it.
Wow.
And we were 21 and
that's
20.
amazing.
Yeah, and we've been married 23 years. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Gone on a TikTok binge. Yeah, as I mentioned, first time I got stuck in Seoul, but yeah, I've done many TikTok binges.
It's done a so great easy to do.
They've
done
so
a great
easy
job
to
with
do.
the
algorithm.
Yeah, and you're probably looking at it from a marketing perspective too, right?
I'd love to say that it's a professional thing, but no, it's just entertaining.
Cheated in golf. Yeah, I suck in golf. So I will just be up front. And, you know, when I play golf, they put happy faces or sad faces for every hole. So that's kind of how I play.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say cheated in the sense of like I've like tried to play it off like I did better than I have. But like same thing. Like I'm not good. I'll just be like, whatever. Kick the ball back into the fairway. Like, you know. Put someone's hand in warm water to make them pee. Yes, definitely.
Everybody's done that, right?
All those pranks as a kid we had to do.
The best.
The tickle the nose with the shaving cream. And like there were so many good ones.
One time we did that and it didn't work. We're like, screw it. And we just poured the water on him to make it look like he peed himself, right? Yeah, screw it. Had a crazy run on the craps table? Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. I think I was up like 25 grand from like $2,000.
That's amazing.
You know, if you just start rolling, I'm the kind of guy I'm just aggressive. I'm going to lose the money quickly or I'm going to win a lot. Yeah. Right? And just keep that pressing.
Yeah. The first time I played, I won, I think it was like $1,500, which I was betting, I think, $20 a bet, kind of like I had $100 on the table and it went up to $1,500 and it was that got me a little hooked on craps. It's fun.
Totally does.
Plus the camaraderie of it. Made a business call on the toilet all the time.
All the time. That's a quote.
It's back to back. You're working from home.
Kept the tags on a piece of clothing and returned it after wearing it. Absolutely. So like in LA, everybody does that when you get headshots, right? You just basically,
I just got headshots. I should have done that. I actually like the shirt I bought. But,
especially with 3 kids and they're in the industry. Oh, absolutely. We do that.
Good call.
Yeah.
Last one, slept at the office. I mean, not in the sense that most people think. Like I hate commuting, so I've always kept my office close to where I live. And they actually say the number one indicator of where an office location is where the CEO lives. And I'm fall right into that statistic. So I've never had to be like, oh, I'm just going to sleep here so that because I can be here in the morning. Like that never made sense. I can go 10 minutes to it was always like 10 minutes to the office. Yeah. But I've definitely taken naps or like been up all night and been like, I just need to do like a 30-minute power nap, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Shown up at the wrong airport or flight. I've done this twice. One time in New York, right? I've got the whole family and we got the rent-a-car and, you know, and we end up going to LaGuardia when it was supposed to be JFK. Oof. And I'm just like, and then my wife is all stressed out. We're going to miss our flight. We've got kids. What are you thinking? So I've done that once. And then by myself, I do that all the time. Like, not all the time, but like, it's either Burbank or LAX, right? Yeah. And so one time I drove all the way to LAX thinking like, I got to catch this flight. And I was supposed to be at Burbank. Yeah. So I got there early enough where I could drive all the way to Burbank. Nice. Has that ever happened to you?
Once, and it was a fun story. We were going on spring break my sophomore year of college from Tucson to Cabo, and we got a flight that went through Phoenix. We showed up, and we showed up an hour late because we thought our flight was we thought it was a 4 o'clock flight and it was a 3 o'clock flight, and something happened that we were late, but we looked at the time, and I was like, we have a long enough layover that we can make the Phoenix flight. And so we got them to like because you'll usually get canceled, but we got the airline to handle that, jumped in the car and just irrationally and unsafely got our ass to Phoenix in time to catch the flight.
Wow.
So we caught our layover by driving.
Is that right?
Yeah. It was fun.
Talk about a journey.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you for playing. That was fun.
That was good.
Got to know you a little bit better there. Next thing I'll call you and get your business advice while you're doing your thing.
I'll always mute out when I flush. Don't worry.
I'll always mute when I flush, you said. So you've got a lot of things going on in addition to a fast-growing multiple businesses. So you're writing a book.
Yep.
So is this your first book?
First book, and not writing it. It's done. So
is that right?
We pre-launched it. Thank you. Yeah, called the Hawke Method, and it's on Amazon, it's on Target, it's on Walmart. We have it at hawkemethod.com. We're launching it March 1, but we've pre-launched it, and the whole goal. So the book is basically we've grown over 3,500 brands at this point successfully, and it's like all our marketing methodology and things that we use and our framework on how to analyze marketing, how to look at what the needs are, find the holes in what you're doing in marketing, and just give people basically a strategy to look at on like, am I even doing things right? How do I even look at this? Because it's one of the most common challenges we see with entrepreneurs, with heads of marketing, et cetera, is like, I don't even know where to start. Yeah. And so that was the idea, is like a very easy read. It's 200 pages, but an easy read, 200 pages. around like just the overall marketing strategies we use. And the goal is to get 20,000 books sold before we go live on March 1, because that locks us in hopefully for a New York Times bestseller. So
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So we're working hard on that and firing on all cylinders, marketing it and getting it out there.
Congratulations.
And hoping it provides a ton of value. Because again, our mission at Hawke is accessibility to great marketing. And we feel like this is another way to accomplish that mission, is now buy a $16.95 book, and you hopefully at least gives you a start where you can get going on your marketing.
And I don't vouch for too many books, but this is a book that I will vouch for and I will pick up and I will read for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. I wrote a book myself in COVID. I kind of just buckled down, and my book was about law firm SEO, teaching law firms how to do it. Mostly because too many people get taken advantage of, and I was sick of that. And so I'm like, I just want to like write a book so that people just stop getting taken advantage of. Not so much to hire me to do it, just don't get taken advantage of, right?
And I know, like, as you do too, like go do this on your own, and if we can be valuable, great. Like for me, it's like hire me if I'm valuable. If I'm not, I don't need to be like, I've never been someone that wants to. Like that's why we're month to month. We're the nimble.
Same way.
Yeah, exactly. I think we align on this is like, if we're valuable, work with us. If we're not, don't. Like,
fire us.
Yeah, exactly. But and if I can provide you, if my value can be summed up in a 200-page book that you can read in a day, then don't hire me. Like this is hopefully just going to give you the highlights of what you can do yourself, and then come to us, because bandwidth is a big part of this too. Like you're going to want us to, someone needs to execute this stuff too. So that's part of it. But we wanted to get it out there for all the people that may not hire us, may hire. And even, honestly, part of this is we're sending it to every client we have, because now it's like, here's what we're doing all day. Like you need to be like, this will help us have a conversation with you without having to educate you as much, because you already have the basis, and we can just be talking strategy and getting into the weeds.
Yeah. No, totally. We were park our cars in the same garages there. Yeah, for sure. You also have, so usually you're on the opposite side. You're usually sitting here because you also have a podcast too.
Hawke Talk.
Hawke Talk.
Yep.
I was actually listening to the Gary Vaynerchuk episode on the way here.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
Yeah, you guys have a little bit in common too.
Yeah, we share a birthday.
Right? Is that right?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're exactly 11 years apart. Huh. We've done a bunch of business together. He's a good, I admire him a lot, to be honest. And not in the celebrity sense, but more just, he's a really humble, good guy that's really bright and really jumps into trends the right way and seems to know how to capitalize on them, but has not burned people along the way, has just built a great business. And I actually sent him a note on our birthdays just thanking him, because when I first met him, I was just getting started, and he had already built something solid, and like he took a lot of time with me. He's helped me along the way, even coming on my podcast. Like in some senses, we're quote unquote competitors. Sure, we very rarely compete, but it could be seen that way. And he knows by being on my podcast, he's helping me a lot more than I'm helping him. Of course, yeah. But he even said it, I think, on the podcast, but he talks about like what goes around comes around. We'll figure it out, and I know that he knows that I'm there for him too when the time comes that I can help him out. But that hasn't come, and he still continues to throw events together. We did co-invest in a company together that spun it. His CMO started a company called Tracer that's like an analytics tool for media buying, that we co-invested together and are supporting that. And so that's been a really cool one.
That's awesome. So is there, like, for this podcast, right? Like there's really no angle, like, to be honest with you. Like I'm just interviewing interesting people, right? Last week before you were here, we interviewed a professional mermaid.
That's fun.
Right? And now you're here, right? So like a very diversified group of people that we're interviewing.
I wonder, are professional mermaids recession proof?
I think so. She's living a pretty good life.
There you go.
Yeah,
nice.
She is. So there's really no angle. It's just me kind of being curious, right?
Yeah, similar motivation. What it was I was just meeting tons of really interesting people that had nothing to do with me professionally. Gary Vaynerchuk's frankly a bad example, but like the first 5 were Colin O'Brady, who hiked across Antarctica, Anthony Scaramucci, who is pretty infamous at this point, Brandon Webb, who was a Navy SEAL sniper.
Wow.
He ran sniper training for the SEALs. Who were the other 2 first ones? I can't remember who else was the first launch, which is I feel bad about, but still the point was, it's not all like entrepreneurs building marketing campaigns. It's the idea is these are people that are highest achievers in their field. And I started to want to understand like what gets you there. Like how do you decide you want to do that? And then how do you accomplish that? Like the guy, Colin, who hiked across Antarctica, it's 54 days towing a 350-pound sled behind him by himself, just walking in the middle of what looks like a shaken snow globe. Like it's just white.
Yeah.
And like, why? And not just why, how, like how, you know, it was him and a British SAS guy were the two to try to do it, and he won. And he's a scrawny kid from, you know, Oregon that went to Yale. Like, it's not, it's those kind of things that, like, how do people become these, you know, whether it's a top athlete, et cetera. So I was like, this is really fascinating to me. I want to ask these people this. And, oh, this is interesting. Like, if I called Colin or Gary Vee or whatever and said, hey, want to grab coffee so I can hear your life story? The answer is going to be no. Yeah. Pretty confident in that. They're nice guys, but they're dead. Why? Yeah. But if I say, hey, you want to come on my podcast? The answer has actually been yes most of the time.
Totally.
And so that's how it started. And then now it's perpetuated, just like every cool person I meet that's like really fascinating. And like, I'll just like highlight, I met Jake Wood last night, who started Rubicon Project. Okay. Or Team Rubicon. They do like disaster relief, and he was a Marine sniper in Iraq and Afghanistan. He was a football player at Wisconsin, and like really fascinating story. Yeah, I'm going to call him. We already talked about it, but I'm going to try to have him on the podcast. Like, it's people like that I come across that, like, I don't know if there's business to do together, but this is a fascinating story. And then you realize that the brand alignment's there, because what we're trying to do is help people achieve their dreams as Hawke Media, and get to that with the marketing side of things. And so this podcast now is showing how other people in whatever vocation they've chosen achieve those dreams, have gotten to the highest caliber of their industry. Yeah. So it was really originally just, I want to hear it. I want to talk to the person for an hour. Oh, and I might as well record it and show it to people. And now it's taken a little bit more of a branding approach.
That's awesome. Yeah. So that's very similar. So, I mean, that was one of the reasons why we invested right here in the Television Academy campus, right? Where we made this big investment, because you're able to kind of bring in people that might not come to my home, or I guess I could do it virtually too. But
listen, I have a problem with the time commitment of doing it in person. Like, it just, keeping up, as you know, is very hard. Yeah. So I do it virtually for that reason. Plus, I'm traveling a lot, so I could, like, being able to do it wherever I am is super important. Yeah. But I think there's a value to doing it in person. I think
it's the connection, exactly. and then just the return on relationships, right? Yep. You know, like, you know, this person that also you've got the connection with this right? And so it's pretty cool. All right, so we're going to end this off with something called Hennessy Heart to Heart.
All right.
It's pretty simple. I just ask you pretty simple questions, and you just kind of answer them.
All right.
All right, so what is something that cheers you up?
Cheers me up.
Yeah.
What is something that cheers me up? My dog.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have one dog?
I have one dog, but I've had dogs my whole life.
His or her name?
His name is Hefe.
Hefe.
He's a tiny little rescue. He's like 8 pounds.
Yeah.
That's why we named him Hefe. 'Cause I was like, and that's, you're laughing exactly how I get to laugh every day. It's like a little, like, you know, he's the boss. And it's just, yeah, he's a very funny little dog that's, you know, my wife jokes about, because she's like a very, like, sensitive person and has that side. I'm really goofy and don't take myself seriously. Yeah. And we have a dog that's somehow a mix of the two of us, that he's like sensitive and moody sometimes, but then he'll be really goofy and weird, and like, it's so fun. So yeah, I'd say
Hefe cheers you up. I can see that, right? Have a stressful day. Hefe's going to greet you and jump on you, right?
I mean, now we work from home. He's there all day. Yeah. It's hilarious. So.
What is a goal of yours for the coming year?
To either build out the first phase or acquire the first phase of building out the software backbone I want to build for our company. That's a big one.
If you can get rid of one of your bad habits, what would that be?
Ooh. I'm trying to think of what I'd want to get rid of. Because I have bad habits, but my wife let me know yesterday that I tend to talk over people, which I'm like, that is a bad habit, but I don't know if I'm fighting to get rid of it. I think it's we go back to my coach, seek to understand first. Like, don't try to assume where someone's coming from. Like, when I'm working with my executives, instead of like finger pointing, which I try not to do anyways, but I think I could come at it more productively in the way that I would approach challenges with my executives. And that's why I brought in a COO, because I know I'm not good at that, but I think I also can work on being better at that myself too.
Good answer. What is one of your most prized personal possessions?
Prized personal possession. I would say probably, like, I think about like, what would, if there was a fire in our house.
What's the first thing you grabbed?
What the first thing I grabbed? Yeah. Obviously my wife and dog are, but I wouldn't call those possessions. So like a material thing. I went to Tokyo in 2017 with my business partner for the weekend, because my wife had to be out of town for my birthday. And so it was like, we decided to go. It was her suggestion. We're like, fuck it, we're going to Tokyo for the weekend. Got really drunk at a lunch we got recommended to. It was kaiseki, and sake pairing. We had 12 bottles of sake between the two of us for lunch.
Okay.
I started demanding that the chef find me a katana in a fun way. He was laughing, but he like hands me like some Japanese characters and goes taxi. I go to a antique shop, and I ended up, long story short, buying a sword. I was close to blackout drunk, no idea what I bought. And then I got a certificate with it. I showed it to my Japanese friend, and he goes, "You bought a sword?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Yeah, it was made in the early Edo period by this swordsmith." I'm like, "Early Edo period? Isn't that like 1600s?" He's like, "Yeah, your sword was made in 1580. It's a samurai." So I have this like real samurai sword that I had no idea I had bought, that they then, and also there, it's kind of like guns in California. Like there's a cooling off period. You buy it and you have to wait 30 days to get it. So they shipped it to me. I was worried that I'd never get it, and they ended up shipping me this antique samurai sword.
Is it hanging in your house somewhere?
It's in a safe, actually.
It is. Okay,
yeah.
I was gonna say.
Which it's not that expensive. Just, I mean, not enough to have to be locked in a safe. My wife made the point of like, we still are in that age where like half my friends are goofy as shit and like might grab it off the wall.
Oh,
so like,
of course.
We're not there yet.
What is something abnormal or daring that you've eaten?
Bunch. Guinea pig.
Oh, really?
Cricket, scorpion.
So you're exploratory like that with food.
I don't enjoy any of it. It's just I feel like it's explore what's life have to offer. Like it's hard for me to say no to things like that just because I'm like I got to try it, right?
That's where me and you differ. Yeah. Guinea pigs on the menu. I'm going with the kids menu. It's called cuy.
It's a delicacy in Ecuador.
Ah, see. What's one of your favorite quotes?
I feel like I had a list of these on my computer. So I will quote something that I know is a misquote, but it was really impressive to me. I was dealing in a mediation where we were dealing in, again, it was pre-lawsuit kind of thing. And we were arguing with this lawsuit. The person had just made up 50 things. Like it was a complete false lawsuit. Like they just made it all up. And I'm talking to the mediator and I'm like, just let me get this straight. Like they can literally make up anything in arbitration, and they can make up this list of shit and go to court with it and sue us on it, and there's nothing we can do in recourse in California, by the way. And he's like, yeah, and I'm like, but it's like all made up. Like this is literally fabricated. Like not even like it's not even arguable. Like we can disprove all of this. And he's like, yeah, and I'm like, can I countersue him for like perjury or something? And he's like, not in civil court, not in lawsuit. I'm like, but on principle, that seems really fucked up. Yeah. And he's like, yeah. And you know what Winston Churchill said about principles? They're kind of like top hats. They're great till you try to stand on them.
Wow.
And it's just, it comes up over and over again when we're trying to like, what's the outcome you want versus what principles you stand on? I don't mean like have no principles. I just mean like when you're trying to like argue based on your principles and fight for something, a lot of times it's not worth it. Like he's like, yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, we get it. It's not fair. Yeah. Life's not fair. Move on. Now get the outcome you want. Yeah. And I think that, but good the advice. Statement, and by the way, I Googled it. I don't think Winston Churchill actually said that, which made me like that arbitrator or the mediator was just, I'm impressed. Okay. Yeah. He definitely got what he wanted out of me. Just shut up and get this done. It's like, all right.
Move on. Right. Yeah. Move on. What's one of your favorite desserts?
Probably ice cream.
Okay. What kind of ice cream?
Chocolate or some form. That fish food ice cream at Ben & Jerry's for a while. Didn't really like them taking a stance on like Palestine and Israel. I thought that was a little ignorant. I
see what you're saying. Yeah.
Which is the first time I've seen a company take a stance. I'm like, yeah. Kind of honestly that, and when Chick-fil-A like went the anti-gay marriage way, I was like, come on guys, just stay out of it. Like, and so, but for a long time it was definitely that.
Got it. Yeah. Have you ever had a nickname?
Ekik.
What's that come from?
A little girl that couldn't say Erik, just was like Ekik in this game. And then a bunch. My brilliant fraternity in college. I was apparently the first Jewish guy most of those guys had met in Arizona, and so instead of Huberman, my nickname in college was Juberman.
Juberman.
Yeah. Okay. Which I don't think would be very woke culture these days, but I didn't mind it. I was like, sure, fine. If I can be your token Jew friend, I have no problem with that.
I was at a dinner the other night with some Jewish friends, and they were talking about somebody that they knew, and he was like explaining. He's like, yeah, she's Jew-ish. I'm like, I've never heard that before.
Yeah, Lewis Black said a great line. He's like, Judaism, everybody gets to pick their level, and anybody more Jewish than you is crazy, and anyone less Jewish than you is not really Jewish. So like, I look at my like friends that are kosher, and I'm like, you're nuts. And they look at me, they're like, yeah, but you're not really Jewish. Like, it's really funny, but that is the dynamic in Judaism for sure.
Yep. What's one of your favorite songs?
Killing in the Name of Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah, okay. I saw them here, actually.
Did you?
Yes.
I was bummed.
Yep.
I had the tickets to Coachella last year, but COVID.
Okay.
But yeah, no,
it was their comeback tour. They haven't performed in years.
Yeah.
And I just happened to be in LA.
I just grew up on them, and like, you know, it's not like I'm some, you know, rebel that actually like the music resonates. I'm obviously a pretty capitalistic, and I'm pretty sure the machine they're raging against is capitalism. But at the same time, I think they just, as a band, they're so talented, and it's a really good stuff.
Awesome. And then we'll end with this one. How would your mom describe you?
How would she describe me? I'm thinking like 100 different things. My mom's been a very supportive part of my life.
What's your mom's name?
Trudy.
Okay. Like when she here, put it this way. She's at a Starbucks and she meets an old friend and like, how's Erik doing? Like,
oh, she would, yeah. She'd say he's doing great. I'm so proud of him. She's perpetually proud of me for doing anything I do. So it has nothing to do with like, thankfully, the objective level of success I've had. Yeah. Doesn't matter. I could have done whatever. She's always proud of me. Always reminds me to lead with my heart. It's a big thing for her. Okay. And yeah, her and I are very close. So,
but what does Erik do for a living?
This marketing thing.
This marketing.
Listen, my dad.
He works with computers. Right?
Yeah, my dad used to always say, "I don't know what you do. I don't get it at all. But as long as it's legal, I'm proud of you." So,
this marketing.
Neither
thing.
of my parents ever understood this stuff.
Erik, man, you've been such a good sport. I appreciate you being on the show. Thank you for coming down here, man.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Yep.